Does your organization have technology leadership or just someone keeping the servers running? Now, most government IT directors or managers are system administrators with a fancy title. That's not an insult. It's a structural problem holding your entire organization back. The skills for keeping systems operational are completely different from the skills for leading technology strategy. You've got one person trying to do two jobs, and they're failing at the strategic one, not because they're incompetent, but because it's impossible. Let me tell you about Mike. Mike was the IT director for a mid-sized county, about 800 employees, $150 million budget, not tiny, not huge, typical government organization. His title said director. He reported directly to the county administrator. On the org chart, it looked like a leadership role. In reality, here's what Mike's life actually looked like. 6:45 a.m., Mike's in the office. Before anyone else arrived, he's checking the overnight monitoring alerts. Did anything crash? Any security incidents? Any backup failures? He handles issues before the day officially starts because once the day starts, he won't have time. So 8 a.m. rolls around, first of many meetings, project status updates, vendor calls, department heads stopping by with problems, HR issues with his 6-person team, budget discussions. Throughout the day, constant interruptions, help desk escalations. The issues that help desk couldn't solve end up on Mike's desk. Worse, Mike is help desk. Security alerts that need immediate attention, executives with urgent requests. The county administrator needs something for a board meeting now. So by lunch, Mike has handled a dozen unplanned issues. The strategic work he'd planned to do, pushed again. He'll get to it. He always tells himself he'll get to it later. Afternoons are more of the same. More fires plus procurement paperwork. Every technology purchase over $5,000 requires his review and signature. He's signing invoices, approving contracts, reviewing quotes, administrative work that fills whatever time the emergencies don't. So he leaves at 7 p.m. most days, often logs back in at night for things he couldn't get to. Now, here's what Mike doesn't have time for: strategic thinking. What should technology look like at this county in 5 years? What capabilities do they need? What's the roadmap to get there? Mike doesn't have hours to think about this. He has minutes stolen between the fires. He's also doing research. What are the other counties doing? What new technologies should they be evaluating? What are the best practices? Mike isn't reading the industry reports. He isn't attending conferences. He doesn't have time. Relationship building goes away. Sitting down with department heads to really understand their challenges is not a thing that goes on. Building partnerships with peer organizations, engaging with the county administrator on strategic priorities. Mike's interactions are transactional. Problems to solve, requests to handle, getting yelled at, nothing strategic. So when the county administrator asks Mike for a digital transformation strategy, Mike worked nights and weekends for 2 months. He produced a list, 60 pages of one-line projects, and it wasn't good. Mike knew it wasn't good. He had cobbled together in stolen hours, without proper research, without adequate stakeholder input, without the time to think deeply. So when the county administrator received it politely, it sat on a shelf. A year later, it still sat on a shelf, never implemented, never really discussed again. Mike eventually left, took a job in the private sector, a company where he'd be the IT operations manager, not the strategic leader. Clear scope with adequate resources for that scope. He told a colleague, I just couldn't keep doing an impossible job. But here's what I want you to understand. The problem wasn't Mike. Mike was very competent. Mike was hardworking. Mike cared deeply about doing a good job. The problem was structural. The organization needed operational IT leadership, someone keeping systems running, managing help desk, handling security, maintaining infrastructure. Now that's a real job. It requires real skills. It takes time. The organization also needed strategic IT leadership. Someone thinking about the future, building capabilities, aligning technology with organizational goals, sitting at the executive table as a peer. That's also a real full-time job. Different skills also takes real time. But they had one person, one salary, one set of hours, trying to do both. The operational work always wins because operational work is urgent. The server is down now. The security alert is now. The executive request is now. Strategic work can always wait until tomorrow. So strategic work waits and never gets done. And now you're accumulating technology debt. Mike wasn't failing because he was bad at his job. Mike was failing because his job was impossible. So let's talk about a different organization, similar size, about 700 employees, a different structure. They had an IT operations manager, help desk management, network administration, server maintenance, security monitoring, desktop support, vendor management for operational contracts. This person was deeply technical, knew the systems inside out, could troubleshoot anything, and he managed a team of 5. They also had a chief information officer, a CIO, who reported directly to the city manager. The CIO didn't manage help desk tickets, didn't configure routers, didn't review every purchase order. What the CIO did is technology strategic planning, enterprise architecture decisions, major project oversight, executive stakeholder management, board and council communication, emerging technology evaluation, vendor relationship management for strategic partnerships. The CIO was at the executive table. When the city discussed new initiatives, a new community center, a service delivery redesign, pandemic response planning, technology leadership was in the room from the beginning. Not invited when there was a tech issue, present as a peer for all strategic discussions. What did this structure enable? When the pandemic hit, if you remember, they were able to pivot to remote work relatively quickly. Why? Because the CIO had been advocating for cloud migration and mobile capabilities and great internet speeds for years. They weren't all the way there, but the foundation existed. They had options. So when they decided to modernize their ERP, the CIO led the strategy. Evaluation criteria, vendor selection approach, organizational readiness, which consulting team to bring in, while the operations manager kept everything else running during the implementation. The CIO could attend conferences, maintain peer networks, stay current on trends. So when council asks, what should we be thinking about with AI, like every council's asking, the CIO had an informed answer, not a scrambled reaction. Yes, the structure costs more. 2 senior technology strategies instead of 1. Maybe 15 to 20% more in leadership costs. But the return in avoided failures, in successful modernizations, in strategic positioning was enormous. This isn't theoretical. I've seen the difference. Organizations with real technology leadership, separated from operational management, consistently outperform those trying to do both with one person. So let's talk about a framework for assessing your situation and your options. Here's 5 questions to diagnose where you are. Question 1. Does your technology leader attend executive meetings as a peer, not just when IT issues are on the agenda? Is technology at the table for all strategic conversations or only invited when there's a technology topic? If technology is only present for technology topics, it's not at the strategic table. It's a service function, called in when needed. That's a fundamentally different role than strategic leadership. Question 2. Do you have a current living technology strategic plan that's actively guiding decisions? Not a document created 3 years ago for an audit, not a plan sitting on a shelf, not a list of random projects. A living strategy that people reference when making decisions. If someone proposes a new system, does the conversation include how does this fit our tech strategy? If not, you effectively don't have a strategy. Question 3. How does your technology leader spend their time? What percentage is operational versus strategic? Actually, track this for a week or 2. How many hours on incidents, help desk escalations, operational issues? How many hours on strategic thinking, planning, relationship building? If 80% or more is operational, you have an IT operations manager, regardless of what the title says. Question 4, is there a technology strategic framework guiding major decisions? We're moving cloud first. We're consolidating platforms where possible. We're prioritizing citizen self-service. We're reducing technical debt before adding capabilities. Now, those are strategic frameworks. They guide decisions without requiring the CIO to be involved in every decision. If decisions are made ad hoc, based on whoever makes the loudest request or whatever the vendor pushes hardest, there's no strategic framework. Question 5, can your technology leader present to council about technology's role in organizational strategy? Not just project updates. CIO-level work requires educating governing bodies, helping council understand technology trends, opportunities, risks, speaking to strategy, not just status. If your tech leader only talks to council, the ERP project is on schedule. That's project management, not even good one. That's not strategic leadership for sure. If you want to learn more about how to be an executive CIO from an IT director, click on this link. So how do you address this gap? If you've diagnosed a gap, if you have an IT director doing operational work but no real strategic leadership, you've got several options. Option 1, separate the roles. Create 2 positions. IT operations manager handles day-to-day, keeps the lights on. CIO handles strategy at the executive level. Now, this is the cleanest solution. Clear accountability, right skills in each role, adequate time for each function. It costs a little more, but We can't afford two roles often means we'll accept not having strategic leadership. Make sure that's a conscious choice, not a default. Option two is fractional or shared CIO services. Contract for part-time strategic leadership. Someone who comes in once or twice a week or a certain number of hours per month to provide CIO-level thinking. Your internal IT director continues handling operations while the fractional CIO provides strategic guidance, participates in executive discussions, builds the roadmap. This works well for smaller organizations that genuinely can't justify a full-time CIO. This works well. I've seen it work well for smaller organizations that genuinely can't afford or justify a full-time CIO, but still need strategic thinking. Option three is develop your current IT director. Now, some IT directors have CIO potential. They have the strategic aptitude. They've just never had the opportunity to develop it because they're drowning in operational work. This path requires investment, executive coaching, leadership development, strategic planning training. It also requires freeing up their time. By the way, if you are a IT director or IT manager that wants to step up and become a CIO, check out this course here that we've developed. So making your IT director do both functions means adding operational capacity beneath them, a strong operations manager or team lead, or accepting that some operational things will get less attention. This is the slowest path, and it really depends on who your IT director is, but it builds internal capability. Option four, distribute strategic technology leadership across the executive team. The city manager or county administrator takes active ownership of technology strategy, with the IT director supporting. Other executives own technology strategy for their domains. The finance director owns financial system strategy, HR director owns HR system strategy, and the IT director coordinates and advises, but strategic decisions are distributed. I'm a little skeptical of this opinion. It works only if you have executives with genuine technology sophistication. Most don't. It's not their day job. But what usually happens is technology decisions become political rather than strategic. But in the right organization, with the right people and the right guidance, it can work. So if you need to advocate for a structural change, adding a CIO role, or restructuring to separate operations from strategy, here's how to make the case. You need to frame it as a risk. We're taking on strategic technology risk. We don't have adequate leadership capacity for major modernization. We're making decisions without strategic framework. Here's what that's cost us, or will cost us. If you've had a failed project, a missed opportunity, a security incident that better leadership could have prevented, use that as evidence. And you should benchmark against your peers. Now, no two organizations are the exact same, but what are similar organizations doing? If your peers have separated these roles, point to it. These 5 counties, our size, all have dedicated CIOs. They've completed modernizations we're still struggling with. And start with a pilot. You can bring in a fractional CIO for 6 months, demonstrate the value, let leadership see what strategic technology thinking looks like. Once they've experienced it, it's easier to make the case for permanent structure. And by the way, there's another option. You can also choose to outsource pieces of your IT operations to a managed services provider. You can learn more about that in this video. So if you have a major technology initiative coming, let's say an ERP replacement, a digital transformation, cybersecurity improvement, make the case that it needs dedicated strategic leadership. This is a 3-year, $5 million initiative. It needs more strategic attention than our current system or structure can provide. Here's what I'm proposing. Now, I want to speak directly to IT directors and managers who might be watching this. If this video describes your life, drowning in operations, no time for strategic work, everyone's asking you for, feeling like you're failing at an impossible job, I want you to know it's not your fault. The structure is failing you. You've been set up in an impossible situation. So you have 2 choices. 1, change the structure. Advocate for your role to be redefined. And by the way, being a CIO, you need to have some sales skills. So sell it. For operational responsibility to be delegated or restructured. For strategic time to be protected. For realistic expectations about what one person can do. This is hard. It requires political capital. It requires your leadership to acknowledge that the current structure isn't working, but it's possible. Or change your situation. Recognize that you are in an impossible position and can find somewhere you can succeed. There's no shame in that. A job that requires you to do 2 very different jobs with 1 set of hours for 1 salary with inadequate support, that's not a job you're failing at. That's a job that's failing you. What you shouldn't do is continue burning yourself out trying to do the impossible. That is not sustainable. It doesn't serve you. And ultimately, it doesn't serve your organization either, because burnt out people don't do their best work. Advocate for change or make a change. Do not accept an impossible status quo. Whether you're an executive or an IT leader, run through the diagnostic questions, answer them honestly. If you're an executive, are you getting strategic technology leadership or just competent operations management? If you're not sure, you're probably not getting strategic leadership. If you're an IT leader, are you set up to succeed? Do you have the right structure, resources, and time to provide strategic value? Or are you trapped in operations? Tell me in the comments, what is your organization's approach? Is it working? What would you change? Technology leadership matters, not just keeping systems running. That's necessary but not sufficient. Strategic leadership means positioning your organization for the future, understanding what's possible, making intentional choices about technology direction. If you want to learn more about bridging the gap between strategic and operational IT, click on this video.